welcome to Group A's LIS 600 Leadership and Policy presentation, The Budget Question, Managing Journal Costs in the Academic Library World, presented by Sean Bennett, Madeline Brodsky, Shelley Kavanaugh, Grayson Cooper, Jill Eller, and Ashton Funkhauser. In this presentation, we will outline issues facing academic libraries in regards to journal costs, and offer suggestions for managing the costs of such resources. While our suggestions may not all be feasible for implementation in every library, this report may be used as a starting point for others to begin thinking about the cost management measures in their own library spaces. This is Madeline, and I'd like to talk to you about transitioning from print to electronic resources. Each library may have its own reasons for switching from a print journal collection to a digital one. As of right now, many academic libraries have both print and e-format versions of periodicals to ensure continuous access for students and researchers, although more and more are beginning to lean in favor of e-resources. The value of an electronic journal collection can be measured by both the convenience of use and the increased benefits for its users. There are numerous benefits of switching to an electronic journal collection. Listed here are just a few examples. Simply put, e-resources are able to serve more users, accessible from virtually anywhere at any time, all the while providing a more diverse selection of scholarly journals available. In addition, e-resource costs are significantly lower than subscriptions to print periodicals. Not only this, but the academic libraries implementing these changes will also see direct savings within the budget, staffing, and facility space. However, there are several things that need to be considered and arrangements made before any action is taken. For instance, there's the idea that academic libraries with digital journal subscriptions are merely renting the information, with many questions raised as to the permanence of access in the future if subscriptions end or if the publisher closes. It should also be noted that currently many small publishers are only able to offer print subscriptions, although this too may change. A need for stability is of the utmost importance. Arrangements should be made to electronically archive all e-resources, along with backup files of all content, to provide a guarantee for future access. Most importantly, a library must consider whether or not it has the ability to provide the infrastructure and user support for an all-digital collection. Regardless of the potential concerns facing the transition to an e-resource periodical collection, the benefits and potential for both growth and savings strongly outweigh any negative outlook one may have.
Hello, this is Shelley Kavanaugh, and I will be covering managing the cost of existing journals. The 1990s found scholarly publishers facing a very real serials crisis, with journal subscription prices increasing at a rate of 10% per year. The Big Deal was introduced as a potential solution to the serials crisis. The efforts were focused on cost containment through bundles. Journal packages have proved advantageous to academic libraries as they offer the Institute an extended assortment of journals. Budgetary issues are diminished as the library can anticipate the cost based on previous year's subscription, adjusted to reflect any percentage increase. Ready and available access to the journal online is perhaps one of the more useful features of the bundled system, as students do not have to fret with sharing or copying print journals with fellow students or faculty. Some researchers contend that by unbundling the Big Deal, libraries would be eliminating the constructive benefits they have enjoyed. Reducing the consortium's buying power would result in higher costs for individual subscriptions and reduce the amount of available resources to the academic community. The purchasing of bundle packages does have its considerable downside when considering the price of academic journals, where you pay a set price for a specific bundle of serials, versus a la carte pricing, where you purchase each serial separately. The most recurrent grievance is that larger publishers have a propensity to charge compounded interest. Typical bundled contracts were created with the underlying supposition that institutes are willing to pay their current price with an additional 10 to 15% increase. Another downside is that publishing companies routinely practice price discrimination based on the size of the institution, whether they offer master's or PhD programs, and body enrollment. Universities and colleges with larger student enrollments receive serials at a reduced rate. There is no real basis of rationalization to the approach used in the price of e-journal subscriptions, so it's at this point that each academic library must take stock of their needs and create their own contracts based upon specific demand. The demand for resources can be determined by tracking their use through cost or use analysis. In looking at this approach, many factors must be examined. You have to look into your space cost, of organizing and shelving print journals compounded over years versus the cost of computer terminals used in the research of e-journals. Looking at your systems cost, your cost of print journals on subscription versus the cost of upkeep and maintenance, new software packages, and specialized tech support for computers in the use of e-journal subscriptions. Your collections cost, cultivating your collection is 3 times higher for e-journals versus the cost of print journals. Your handling cost is sort of the opposite to the collections cost. It's higher for print journals, as each one has to be recorded, labeled, monitored, shelved, maintained, and repaired. Per use cost is probably the most important way of managing your resources. Print journals you're able to count once when they're requested at circulation versus e-journals, which is counted by the amount of times that patrons have accessed the journal online. Acting as an unconventional solution to the big deal is patron-driven acquisitions, where the patrons choose what serials are made available. The first example is where e-journal subscriptions are purchased by the patron through the use of tokens or vouchers. The online articles are made available for viewing for a specific amount of time. And while this method can be seen as needless spending on the part of the patron, it has shown to have meaningful cost savings for the library. The second example is where the library purchases a concentrated set of e-journals to be made available without limitation. A typical agreement includes that once an e-journal has been accessed a specific number of times, the library is then charged for it and it becomes part of the permanent collection.
Hi all, Jill here. I'm covering just-in-time versus just-in-case collection strategies. Just-in-time strategies, also known as pay-per-view, make individual articles available on an on-demand basis. Libraries pay per article purchase or per download. This model is gaining momentum both for cost and labor savings and its flexibility of form. It can be set up a number of different ways. The 3 principal are pay-per-view converting to subscription. You reach an agreed upon threshold of downloads and it automatically converts over to a subscription. There's pay-per-view pre-purchase, like an iTunes card. It's a pre-purchased block of downloads. Once you finish that, you can re-up or just say, sorry, no more. And then the Core Plus peripheral package, in which a library purchases subscriptions to a publisher's core journals and then also gets pay-per-view access to some of the peripheral or less popular, less downloaded journals. There are major advantages to a pay-per-view model. One is cost efficiency. Your cost per use for pay-per-view articles is far lower than the subscription rates. They're very flexible, as you saw in the first slide. They're an invaluable tool for collection management, as you do have real-time stats on what's being downloaded and what's being used. And they offer patrons access to exponentially more journals than were previously available in the subscription-only model. In my opinion, the advantages far outweigh the concerns of a pay-per-view model. If you're already set up for an e-journal model, you've got your technical support and your monitoring already up and running. Abuse and duplication, just like any collection with any material, you're going to have it, and it's a cost of doing business. Even with the cost of abuse or duplication, it's still a viable alternative to a just-in-time subscription standard. The other concern is that pay-per-view would change the direction of the collection. But based on our keynote speaker for the Ideal Summit, this is a good thing. We would be getting a strong message from our patrons on what they need and what they want, rather than shoving our own ideas of what they need and want down their throats.
Hi, I'm Grayson Cooper, and I'm going to talk about consortiums and shared collections. The big deal is the strategic acquisition approach to securing new e-resources, particularly e-journals and online articles. Under the big deal, library consortia band together to contract with publishers for multiple years to receive an increased number of e-journals online. This results in wider collections available for public consumption and was done not so much in the hopes to contain costs, but rather to produce added benefit to the public with the hopes that this would garner increased public funding. Under the New Deal, libraries realized a high utilization of new resources. so much so that the expanded collections actually had a greater total number of hits than the pre-existing collections before the New Deal acquisitions. However, this is a bit misleading. The expanded collections were substantially larger than were the pre-existing collections. So the accesses per item were lower with the new collection, but this still demonstrates that the new resources acquired under the Big Deal were of high quality that drove engaged patron access. We saw the greatest benefit for smaller institutions, but even in the largest academic research universities, we saw a 4 times increase in the number of electronic journal titles at these institutional libraries. However, there remained a persistent concern that the Big Deal would, in the long run, incentivize low-quality research. As I mentioned earlier, the Big Deal was not originally designed as a cost containment mechanism. Instead, it was a strategy to drive acquisitions of electronic articles that could be more readily used and shared by the public. So, in this time of austerity, when we consider that libraries are expected to reduce their costs, there are a couple strategies that we can combine with the Big Deal in order to achieve cost containment. The first being orderly retreat. In this, libraries look across their consortium, recognize the least utilized journals, and drop these from their subscriptions. The second is a shared collection strategy. Libraries often already use shared collections. In fact, 7% of libraries have shared collections with other libraries. Under this, the print archival copy could be held by only one library in the consortia, thereby reducing the cost of both storage and of the print copy subscription. Finally, libraries and library consortia could work through open access publishing to review, publish, and edit work coming out of their own universities. In a study in the UK, it was recognized that libraries, as a consortia system, could realize a cost savings of up to 45 times the initial cost through open access publishing.
Hi, I'm Ashton, and I will briefly be discussing some of the pitfalls of the publishing industry and why for-profit journal subscriptions have become so expensive. From my findings, I found that for-profit journals like to play up on their prestigious reputations as an excuse for higher prices. While they may have started out as the best quality journal, over the years competitors have tried to prove they are of equal quality at a lower price. I like to compare the situation to name brand versus store brand products. There are many store brand products that are just as good as name brand, but time and time again, people go for the name brand because they either recognize it as a trusted brand or equate expensive with higher quality. Theodore C. Bergstrom created some interesting examples in his article, Free Labor for Costly Journals. The strongest one was the idea of coordination game theory. As you can see from the chart, this game theory states that players reap benefits when everyone chooses the same option. The downside to this is that the option everyone chooses might not generate the best payoff. Another issue I found regarding the high cost of journals was not from the publishing industry, but rather from universities. More universities are starting to require faculty to publish only in high-prestige journals as part of their tenure obligations. This not only puts higher stress on professors, but also furthers certain journals' prestigious reputation, as well as harming the university's own libraries in the process.
Good evening, everyone. This is Sean Bennett, and I'll be talking about the accurate forecasting of journals before purchase. One of the risks that librarians take when purchasing a new serial resource is how much the new product will actually be used by library patrons. While there is no completely accurate method of predicting the future usage of a product, there are a number of resources and techniques available to library professionals that allow an educated prediction. The most common method of looking at the possible use of a journal is the impact factor, a number derived from the number of times articles within a journal are cited in a set time period, divided by the total articles published by the journal in that same time period. The impact factor can be useful, since it's a simple and easy to understand number, and it's widely accepted by both academics and the publishing industry. However, the number is very simplistic and can be easily manipulated by a savvy editor. Furthermore, the impact factor is maintained by the publisher Thomson Reuters, and getting detailed figures requires access to their Journal Citation Reports product. Overall, it can be useful, but it's limited. If it's available, Thomson Reuters also offers a local journal utilization report, which focuses only on the citation data for a specific university. But again, this requires the library in question actually has a subscription to this product. One of the most reliable methods of predicting usage is tracking interlibrary loan attempts on the title in question. If the librarian's institution runs an interlibrary loan program, it should be relatively easy to glean data from that system to see if patrons have requested the product being considered for purchase, giving librarians a more concrete use case. As with other methods of prediction, caution is suggested. A single user extremely interested in a topic can generate many interlibrary loan requests, but may not be reflective of the greater university's research interests and needs. Furthermore, relying on interlibrary loan reports puts librarians in a more reactionary position, waiting for patrons to point out holes in the collection before filling them. Some librarians have used combinations of these resources to get a better perspective. For example, in 2011, Oregon State University launched a prediction study using a combination of JCR data, interlibrary loan data, and local citation information to determine which resources to purchase for a new program. This method was considered very successful by the librarians at Oregon State, and they highly recommended that other libraries use similar multi-pronged approaches. Attempting to predict future use of a serial before purchasing is not an exact science, and librarians must be careful to use a variety of methods to try and get the clearest picture possible. While figures like impact factor and citation data are tempting to rely on due to their simplicity, it's best to instead take a multi-pronged approach such as the one undertaken at Oregon State. If the resources for such a large-scale project are not available, it is best to rely mostly on patron requests and hard data from sources such as interlibrary loan. Finally, if all else fails, opening a dialogue with peer institutions that already own the journal in question may shed some light on how popular a journal will be with library patrons.
Hi, it's Ashton again with our group's policy recommendations. Our biggest recommendation is for library professionals to continually look for new and innovative methods for cutting journal costs. Libraries should consider options such as patron-driven acquisitions and switching from print to electronic resources. Apart from actively managing costs, library professionals should also be aware of the coordination game and other gimmicks the publishing industry uses to raise their prices. This is especially important at academic universities, where fellow faculty members may be subject to the same injustices that fuel the cycle. And finally, library professionals should try to predict journal use using tools such as citation reports and interlibrary loan data before making purchases.
To close things out, we have a number of professional solutions for librarians searching for ways to manage journal costs in academic libraries. Librarians should continuously evaluate the cost of journals using counter reports, interlibrary loan data, and any other data sources that may be available to identify weak points in the collection, journals which simply not be getting used enough to justify the cost. Librarians should also examine the needs of patrons and determine if a consortium with other libraries could be beneficial. Working in conjunction with academic departments will be useful in this area, as they may have a better understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of collections dealing with their subject matter in other libraries. Furthermore, keeping abreast of developments within the publishing world is absolutely necessary for the success of an academic library. We also suggest that librarians form committees within their departments to keep an eye on these developments and try to create a rapport with regional sales representatives for the major publishers. Keeping pace with technology is likewise extremely important, as new methods of accessing information reach the library market. As publishers begin offering more just-in-time methods of collecting journals, librarians will need to have the technical know-how to evaluate these programs and decide if they fit their patrons' needs. This can include new methods of purchasing, new methods of accessing materials, or even new and evolving methods of reporting journal use, such as new iterations of the counter report system. Thank you for your time tonight, and we hope that this report has been interesting and useful. For more information on this topic, please visit our website at uncg.schooldata.solutions. Thank you.